Hi, in this video, we are going to learn about what SLA means, how it gets affected by business and calendar hours, how to set up SLA reminders and escalations, and more. Let's jump right in. What is an SLA? Your service desk agents have a responsibility to make your end users happy. They need to solve their problems and they need to do so on time. Let's look at an example. Jane from the customer support team has raised a ticket with IT. Her laptop suddenly stopped working. You know how important it is for customer support teams to stay online. But Jane is unable to get back to her customers on time. If you are not able to prioritize Jane's or anyone from the customer support team's ticket, then the end users face the impact. You can stop something like this from happening by setting up your service level agreement or SLA. In ITIL terms, SLA is an agreement between an IT service provider and a customer. Configuring an SLA lets you set a standard of performance for your IT team and make sure you meet the commitment you have set with the business. If your team falls short of the standard and doesn't resolve an issue on time, it can be escalated to the manager. SLA policies are time driven. It is important to let the service desk know what time should be considered in an SLA policy and what shouldn't. This is where business and calendar hours come in. What are business hours and calendar hours? Business hours refer to the working hours of your team. When chosen, anything outside your working hours, including calls, will not be timed by Freshservice. Calendar hours are regular full-day round-the-clock hours. If you are promising your end users 24/7 support, you need to use calendar hours. It is important to set up your business hours before setting up your SLA policies. That's because it's unfair and ineffective to set up your response and your resolution times based on when the ticket is created as opposed to when the team is actually available. For instance, let's say your team works from 9 AM to 5 PM. A ticket comes in at 4 PM and your first response time is set as 2 hours. Your team would need to answer it by 6 PM if their working hours are not taken into consideration. However, when you use business hours, the ticket needs to be answered only by 10 AM the next day. By setting up your business hours, you are making sure that your team is not unnecessarily penalized. You can even define different sets of business hours depending on time zones or locations. This is helpful when you have a team that works across multiple locations and supports end users across the world. Setting your business hours. Let's create a business hour for a team that works out of Berlin. Click on the business hours option under the admin panel. You can see all your existing business hours here. Click on the create new button to create a new one. Give an appropriate name and a description for this business hour. This way, other admins can also quickly find out what this is about. Be sure to specify the right time zone for your business hour if you have multiple sets of them. In this case, since we are setting the business hour for the team that works out of Berlin, let's pick the Berlin time zone. If your team works in multiple shifts to cover all 24 hours in a day, pick 24/7 helpdesk hours. But in this case, the Berlin team works between 9 AM and 5 PM on all working days. So let us set up the appropriate timings. Different countries have different holidays and these should be taken into consideration. You can add these holidays manually or import a set of holidays by clicking on the holiday calendar option. Once you save this business hour, you will see it above the default one. Now, to assign this business hour to the Berlin team, click on the groups icon under the admin panel. In the Berlin agents group, you can change the business hours to the new one you just created. Configuring your SLA policy. The next thing that you need to figure out is how to set up your SLA policies to ensure all your ticket replies and resolutions happen in an ideal duration. A ticket can be prioritized as urgent, high, medium, or low based on its content, its requester, or any other ticket property. Freshservice has automations that let you assign a priority to tickets containing certain keywords. Priorities form the backbone of SLA. Higher priority tickets should have shorter resolution times than lower priority tickets. To create an SLA policy, click on the SLA policy icon in the admin page. You will see all the existing SLA policies here, including a default one. The default policy will be applicable to every ticket if you haven't created any other policies. You can either modify the default policy or create a new one. In this case, Let's edit the default policy so the changes you make are applicable on all tickets. If necessary, you can modify the name and the description to show that this policy has been changed. The next step is for you to set the time by which the tickets of various priorities should be replied to or resolved. Under the SLA targets section, you can see that each priority can have different response and resolution times. Modify the time to suit your requirements. For example, in your help desk, if the priority urgent denotes tickets from high value end users, you may want to set the first response time as 15 minutes and the resolution time as 1 hour. Please note that 15 minutes is the minimum first response and the resolution time you can set for any priority. You can set the operational hours as either business hours or calendar hours, depending on the priority. As discussed, if you work within certain hours during the day, it's best you choose business hours here. However, depending on the nature of issues that you get, you may want to choose calendar hours for high and urgent priority tickets. You can also choose whether or not to send an escalation email to a senior agent or a manager if the time mentioned in the SLA has been exceeded. Before you save this policy, make sure to check the information again, as it would be applicable on tickets right away. Now, the due by time for the next incoming ticket will be set based on your modified SLA policy. You can have a default SLA policy for all your end users or have multiple SLA policies for different end user tiers, ticket sources, and more. Setting up multiple SLA policies. You can create multiple SLA policies and enforce different agreements for each ticket based on different conditions. If you want to create another SLA policy, you can click on the New SLA Policy button on the SLA Policies page. You will then have to define the SLA targets for each ticket priority, just like you did with the previous policy. The key difference comes with the next step. You have to set up the conditions for when you want the particular policy to be triggered. Here are the various conditions you can use as triggers. Department. You can choose to apply this SLA policy only for the departments you specify here. You can set up a tighter SLA for the customer support or sales department related issues as they have a higher business impact. Group. If you want this policy to apply only for specific agent groups, you can select them here. For example, you might want to define a different set of service levels for your L2 and L3 IT team, which has to invest more time in troubleshooting technical issues and building features as compared to L1 teams who in most cases give quick resolutions for simpler issues. Source. You can set a different service level target for tickets coming in through multiple channels. For example, the SLA you set for a ticket coming via email can have a longer SLA than for a ticket created via phone or Slack. Type. You can select the SLA to be enforced based on the type of ticket which your end user reports. In the menu, you can also select the options as either incident or service request. Under the service request option, you can also specify the service item or category for which the SLA applies. That is, you can set a stringent SLA policy for categories like data services or for specific items within different categories like revoke application access or password reset. Category. If you want this policy to apply only for a specific ticket category, you can select it here. For example, the SLA policy for a network related issue should be more stringent than a hardware related one. If you have multiple SLA policies, the first one with matching conditions will be applied to a ticket. You can reorder your SLA rules and organize them in such a way that the most restrictive rules are higher up in the order. This will make sure your most important tickets are resolved as soon as possible. Ticket reminders and escalations. Once the time specified by the SLA has passed, it's best to escalate this case to another agent so that they can take care of it immediately. For instance, if one of your agents, Rachel, gets stuck in back-to-back meetings, her tickets might go unanswered and overdue. To quickly look into issues like this, you can send an escalation email that will let her manager and other agents know about the ticket. To set up such escalations, open the SLA policy and go to the What happens when the due date approaches / this SLA is violated section. To set escalation for response SLA, click on Add Rule under the Set Escalation Rule when a ticket is not responded to on time. Here, you can specify how much time after the SLA violation can pass before the escalation email is sent. You can also specify who the email should be sent to. For resolution SLA, you can set up to 4 levels of escalation. The escalation email can be sent to a peer in the first level and to the CEO in the last level if necessary. For both response and resolution, you can choose to remind instead of escalate by choosing a time before the SLA is violated. This way, the assigned agent is aware of the impending violation and can quickly act on it. You can set up escalation protocols for multiple SLAs as well. Priority of an SLA. When it comes to setting up an SLA, the priority of a ticket is of great importance. But the question is, how does one determine the correct priority? In Freshservice, you can create a priority matrix and standardize your priority decisions. The priority matrix allows an admin to define what priority should be used based on each combination of urgency and impact associated with an incident. Urgency and impact are two fields associated with every ticket. Urgency is used to determine how soon an incident should be resolved. Impact is the effect an incident will have on service levels. The best practice is to have the end user select the urgency and the agent select the impact of the ticket. For example, a user who is raising a ticket about being unable to access the internet would mark the urgency of the ticket as high. But since the issue is only affecting the user's laptop and not anyone else's, the agent would mark the impact of the issue as low. A combination of impact and urgency can be used to determine the priority of a ticket. Simply put, priority equals impact times urgency. To enable the priority matrix for your account, navigate to the Admin tab and select the Priority Matrix option that comes under Help Desk Productivity. Toggle on the Enable Priority Matrix option. This will enable it. This takes the guesswork out and makes priority determination simple and structured. With this, you are now aware of all there is to know about setting up SLAs in Freshservice. SLA policies are one of the biggest differentiators between an email inbox and a help desk. That's why it's important to understand how SLA policies work and how you can use them effectively. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Until then, happy supporting.